Well, it is the Thursday before Christmas, and I have a lot of these to do. Now, thankfully, traffic this morning is pretty much non-existent. And so my drive to the office is, most of it is kind of a nice leisurely country drive anyway. And so with even less traffic today, it'd be a good opportunity to jump in, because I got a lot more of these to do, and I wasn't really expecting to go past tomorrow on them, but I have more ideas than I have days. So yeah, I guess let's just keep going, and if I have time, maybe we'll shoot out another one of these this afternoon. But this is the series about, just specifically why I did not like The Last Jedi. And as I was posting the video yesterday, I mentioned in the video that I saw one article about how somebody was expecting at least a few people to dislike the film because of all the women and people of color in it. As I was posting the video, I saw a bigger article where people are now thinking that the bad audience reviews are kind of like this alt-right plot to discredit the movie because of women and people of color. And if I had known all this was coming out, I probably wouldn't have even started this series, because it really does seem like, and I know there's some exceptions out there, and so every time you say in general, somebody goes, well, not me. That's what in general means. It may not be exactly you, but in general, the people that I've talked to who did not like the film, who are numerous and not racist, do so because of specific reasons. And in general, the people who like the film keep calling names. And so I was hoping to engage in a conversation here, and I'm not really finding it, honestly, guys. I know y'all are out there, and I've engaged with some of you that have genuine reasons, character development reasons to like the film, and so fantastic for you. But as I'm looking at the landscape, I'm seeing a lot of, well, you're just a racist, or well, you just you wanted something else, and now you're disappointed that you didn't get specifically what you wanted, and that sort of thing. And so, but it did start, and I do have a few more points that I wanted to make, and so, we're going to keep going at least a while longer here. And the next one is honestly something I don't understand, because one of the what I'll call legitimate reasons to like the film was something I've seen pop up, that that Rian Johnson was doing something different, that he was kind of tearing down the old Star Wars, and that kind of uses Iconoclast, that's breaking everything that came before to rebuild it. And so I've seen this quite a bit, and honestly, I don't understand it. I'm not sure how you believe that that's what was going on. Okay, so I have a few theories on it. But first of all, the fact that this was something different, let's just take that at first. If you're gonna say it was something different because the end was a different end to the exact same movie, then okay. But that was actually the argument I was making for The Force Awakens, and all of you were complaining that it was too much like A New Hope. And so if you go back in my videos, you'll hear me making that point, that sometimes it's really worthwhile to do plot parallels, not just a parallel plot, but to actually bring out the differences and really focus on them. And that's what I thought was going on with The Force Awakens. And so that was me 2 years ago. And most of you thought I was an idiot. But now we have a movie where you're in this stalemate with the good guys and the bad guys, and it's just a matter of time before the bad guys catch up with the good guys, and there's no way for the good guys to defend against that. So what they have to do is go down to the nearby planet to get a way to take down the shields to expose a weakness in the bad guy's big ship. At the same time, the Jedi hero surrenders to be taken before the Grand Master figure by the bad Jedi in the hopes of turning the bad Jedi to the good. Meanwhile, the bad Jedi is hoping to turn the good Jedi to the bad, and a fight ensues. So this is the basic outline of Return of the Jedi and The Last Jedi. Now, what happens after that is the interesting part, because and I've always found this fascinating in Return of the Jedi, because there were actually 3 goals. Each person in that scene had a different goal. The Emperor wanted Luke and Darth Vader to battle it out, and he was going to take whoever won as an apprentice. Darth Vader wanted Luke to join with him and take down the Emperor, and that together they would rule. And then Luke, of course, wanted Darth Vader to join up with him to defeat the Emperor and become good. Now, Luke's plan worked out in that one. It's very similar to what happened here. Not exactly, Snoke did not want Rey as an apprentice. Snoke wanted Rey as bait. That's an interesting change. And the fact that the plots parallel one another and the scenes so clearly paralleled one another made you think as you were going into it, as they were rattling off very similar dialogue. They were Rian Johnson was very skillfully, and this is a part I really liked, very skillfully making you think that this was going down the same road as Return of the Jedi, and therefore would come out the same. And so when Kylo strikes down Snoke and fights alongside of Rey, you're like, okay, I've seen this movie before. I know what's going to happen, but it doesn't. That's interesting. The fact that Finn gets caught trying to take down the shields, it's frankly not that interesting. We've had so many Star Wars plots about, our only hope is to take down their shields, exploit this one tiny weakness. It's not that intriguing. I thought that was the weakest part of A Force Awakens, and that's a movie I loved. But that was by far the weakest point, the whole Death Star planet thing. And so it was, again, by far the weakest point in this movie. But all that being said, the plot-wise, this isn't really something different. It's something very much like A Force Awakens, that it parallels with previous plots in order to draw out the differences. And that's something that I supported and I defended with Force Awakens. And I'm not going to complain that they did it here too. It's just, I'm just trying to figure out what y'all think is so different about this movie. So, all right, so jumping to the point of being iconoclast. Was this because Luke was all grumpy and didn't want the Jedi to be there anymore? Because by the end, he had turned away from that. and gone back to, yes, we need the Jedi. And so, I mean, you know, this is just another example of somebody who's doubting, coming to, you know, a greater hope. That's kind of the point of all of them. I mean, pretty much that's been the theme. Is it, you know, I don't know, was it Poe's questioning of the command structure? Because he was kind of put in line there at the end. And so all of, you know, for a movie that's supposed to be breaking icons, all the icons are still there. You know, what I'm concerned about, and this is what it seems to be, I know not for a lot of you, but I mean, for those of you who are seriously discussing this film with me, I'm asking you, what is different about this movie? And I'm not getting a clear answer. And so what it seems to be from a lot of the articles is the number of women. But honestly, guys, J.J. Abrams is the one that made the strong female lead, not Rian Johnson. You know, I mean, if that's what is so different, then it's not different. It's the exact same as the previous movie. Okay, so he introduced 2 new female characters, both of whom are incompetent and worthless, and really tear down the plot, and we'll discuss them later. Not because they're women, but because they're incompetent characters. I mean, is that what we're talking about? I'm really not understanding this, the whole point, I guess is what I'm saying. So, yeah, me coming out of that movie, this was definitely variations on the theme. And that's not a bad thing, guys. That's not a bad thing. I defended that in A Force Awakens. And honestly, this is part 8 of a multi-generational story. And it's... Look, guys, I'm sorry to say this, but if you're looking for somebody who's going to change everything, and in part 8 of 9 or more parts to a pretty cohesive story, that's not good literature. That's not good art. You know, I mean, if you got 80% of the way through a romance novel and it suddenly turned into a zombie horror book, yeah, that's one of those things that breaks the secondary belief that we talked about a couple of videos ago. That's not something that, you know, should be encouraged. That's something that really bad authors do. I mean, okay, it's kind of like, have you seen that, you know, that every once in a while you see these things about, you know, mistakes students make, or, you know, funny wrong answers, and I love those. But there's one that was going around where, you know, you got this guy and girl partnered in class, and they were having to write a story, basically one sentence at a time, but passing it back and forth, and they couldn't, you know, agree on what even the genre of the story, where, like, you know, the girl starts it off and it's like a flowery meadow and kids playing or something like that, and then the guy, you know, but meanwhile, a million miles above their heads, you know, Captain Zurgog of the something empire was fighting against their foes, you know, and they just kept going back and forth, trying to force their own story into it. You know, that's bad writing. And I realized that, you know, obviously the Star Wars saga has multiple writers over several decades, but when you are coming into the story, you know, at the very end, and you're like, okay, this story is 80% done, we need you to do the next 10%. And if you, and I'm not saying Rian Johnson did this, I mean, like I said, Rian Johnson is variations on a theme, which is exactly what we would expect in a Star Wars film. But if you're like, well, that's great on this sci-fi thriller, but I am going to, turn it into a romance story. Actually, that was kind of done in episode 2, and that's kind of why episode 2 is the worst of the series. But that's not good art. And so, even if that's what was going on, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. And so I'm kind of lost on this point on why so many people think this was such a great thing. But I don't know. In the meantime, though, we still do have to look at characters and a couple of other points. So maybe I'll try to jump in again this afternoon and hit up one of those topics, because I don't want to be doing this all weekend. It's Christmas. So, all right. Well, thank you again for watching. So please subscribe, and we will be back, well, today or tomorrow.